Let me introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and faith. Is that what it said?
3, red. Red.
Oh, we're going to go?
Yeah.
I wanted to put this thing on here so they can see him over here better. I think that might be better, maybe not. Okay, anyway, we got to go live here. Okay, we're going to go live here.
Let's do a reset. All right.
Yeah, let's do a reset.
All right. So.
Okay, we're live on Facebook, Rhett Palmer. Now we're going to go live on Facebook, Vera's Voice. You ready? Mm-hmm. All right. All right, here we go. The microphones are on over there. Got to put this on here. Oh, almost forgot to record that. Okay,
you need to turn that off.
Why?
Your phone's kicking me out.
How's it kicking you out?
So your profile oversees your all your Vera's Voice magazine accounts. You'll still get live comments on here.
Okay, it'll come in on that one. Okay. Will it come in on his phone?
We can't live stream from 2 devices at the same time.
Okay.
Oh, unless we want something else, like TikTok or something. All right.
All right, so let's
Here we
get
go.
back at it. Hold on. Oh, and
All right, here we go.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Give me a second.
We got to do this. As long as the jingle ends, I'm going on.
And record on the road.
Greetings, fellow sojourners. In this life of ups and downs, as my grandfather used to say, the vicissitudes of life make for poise and power. On a Christian angle, it says that Jesus learned obedience by the things which he suffered. So if you are suffering, I mean this in all sincerity, as I have, I've gone through sufferings, we all do. Remember, embrace the suffering sometimes because you become a better human being. Matter of fact, our greatest leaders of all times have gone through the valleys as well as the mountaintop experiences. One of those people is right here in the studio with us today. He is David Hunter.
No, where's the audience applause?
Here's one.
Yeah.
See? And we used to actually have
Yeah.
fake audience stuff here. But anyway, people know it's fake. They don't care anyway. It sounds good, you know.
Sounds good.
Sounds like 5,000 people are listening in the studio. So we got a lot to talk about today. Former U.S. diplomat to Spain. Portugal? No. Spain, hold on, South Korea, Ukraine, Portugal,
No,
and
India and Pakistan.
Pakistan. Okay,
Pakistan,
I
okay.
get the P right.
Got close. How many years have you been doing this? Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, sometimes I used to think I was intelligent,
Yeah.
and I used to think I was a good person. The good thing is I ran into a quote by Billy Graham last night. It says, are you thinking less of yourself? Well, the closer in life you feel you are to God, the more you'll realize your sin. So it stands out as you get older. You go, not quite the human being I thought I would be, but nonetheless learning some lessons.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today, David Hunter?
Well, the really interesting news this week is that there may actually be a ceasefire and possibly even a peace deal in Gaza. That is really enormous news, and it's been reported on by various news sources.
Does this have anything to do with Trump saying, hey, there's going to be hell to pay if you don't release those hostages?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I think there's no doubt that his coming into office next week on Monday is going to be a spur. He had said if those hostages aren't released, there's going to be hell to pay.
Well, it's kind of like Ronald Reagan and Carter. Carter was perceived as weak. Reagan had got, and on day 444, the Iranians released the hostages as Reagan was coming into office in a week.
Well, in this case, Reagan, the comparison would be Trump is seen by Netanyahu as strong, and Biden is seen by Netanyahu as weak.
Oh, yeah.
Biden supplied Bibi with almost everything he wanted. He kept giving
he's
him.
the greatest friend that Israel's ever had.
Well, I would say the greatest sucker Israel's ever had. I hate to say this, but the reality is that Biden did not do what's in America's best interests. Biden did what is in Israel's best interests.
So you think he shouldn't have given any money to Israel?
I think that he should have had conditionality on his providing of support, and he stood up and pretended many times that he was going to be tough, and he one time even threatened that he was going to withhold 2,000-pound bombs, and of course that was just a bluff.
That's what Obama did with the president of Syria. He said, "Hey, if you kill any more children and females with your chemicals, we're going to be held to pay." Well, they did it, and he didn't do anything. And a year later, I remember hearing the president of Syria go, "Oh well, we're not really worried about."
Yeah, well, I think certainly Netanyahu wasn't worried about Biden. Let's put it that way. He is worried about Trump, and to be honest, well, sometimes your best friend needs to tell you what you need to do. Okay? If you're a good friend, you don't stay quiet and let your best friend drive off a cliff.
The Bible says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend better than the kisses of an enemy."
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
your friend will wound you to save you.
And in this case, Netanyahu, with his far right Zionist comrades, they are driving off the cliff. They are driving Israel off the cliff. They are making enemies right and left. They say, "Oh, I'm going to destroy Hamas." Let me finish. They're going to destroy Hamas down to the last one. No, the reality is, and this is something that even Secretary Blinken just announced the other day, there are massive new recruits coming into Hamas. The war that is being fought is not getting rid of Hamas, it's adding to the problem. These people are joining Hamas because they are angry at what Israel has been doing all over. And Israel is losing its support from all over the world, Arab countries and so forth. Trump knows that.
The reason I've been so pro-Israel is that if you have cancer, you don't go in and cut half of it out.
Well, the treatment is wrong. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
The cancer is coming back.
No,
we have to annihilate that cancer.
We talked about this before. That the Mossad has the ability. You talked about it yourself.
Well,
the Mossad,
has the ability what?
They have the ability to go in quietly
surreptitiously, in a clandestine fashion,
and remove the senior Hamas leaders without having to drop 2,000-pound bombs and blowing up children and women.
Why don't they?
Because I don't know. That's a good question. Why don't they?
I thought our CIA was impervious. They were my heroes growing up, and yet they lied about weapons of mass destruction, or else they were too dumb enough to know that Saddam Hussein didn't have them. And then we open up that hornet's nest. Who the heck knows what they're doing anymore? Yeah,
well, anyway, I'm assuming that the Mossad is more competent than the CIA.
Oh, they are. That I guarantee you.
And in their duties, that's different matter.
If the CIA asked me to join them, depends on the pay. If Mossad asked me to join, I go, okay, my brethren. Even though only half my family's Jewish, I don't have any. I'm not Jewish. I'm part black, by the way. So.
Right. Okay.
So don't be calling me the N-word today. You'll be in deep of trouble.
Okay. Anyway, so the point is, you ask about Trump.
Yeah.
Trump does not want war.
Yeah.
He is. I'll give that one bit of credence to him. I support that aspect of Trump's instinct. He has some instincts, and one of them.
The whole thing with Greenland. He doesn't want to buy Greenland. Now Greenland has relented and said, well, we don't want to sell to you, but you can put your military here. Okay, we got what we wanted.
Okay, well.
Without buying them.
All right, let's not talk about Greenland. That's too complicated for the moment. We might get to it later in the show if we have time. But I want to stick on Gaza.
Okay.
So Trump does not want war. He has actually been recorded as saying that.
Yes.
And his special envoy, who is, he's not yet president, but he's named a special envoy, and that special envoy has gone over to Israel. And apparently, he's already been there. He's there. He's actually there in the peace talks.
Who is he?
I don't remember his name right offhand, but he's actually in the peace talks with the negotiations with Mossad.
Really?
Yes. And Biden administration is accepting that fact that, hey, Trump's going to be here in another week, and therefore you can send your peace negotiator. Let's get this deal done now. And that's Trump's concept. He says the war is costing too much money, and it's damaging everybody's reputation, and it's disturbing and risking accelerating or expanding the war in the Middle East. Therefore, he's basically, his special negotiator has told the Netanyahu personally, this is it. let's get this thing finished. Finish it now. And the deal, the peace deal that's on the table, includes that the hostages, 33 of them, will be released in the first round. There's 3 phases. The first phase, 33 who are mostly women, children, and elderly.
Renege on the other.
Well, the Israelis or any of these could renege, but at the moment, the first phase, which is like 15 days, will be that
But Trump said all.
not all at once. That's the point. That's the key, and this is something that
Okay, so it's
Trump
all,
and
but not all at once.
Trump and Biden have both agreed. Now, the Israeli far right is saying, "Oh, we won't accept this unless it's all at one time." So the Israeli far right is trying to torpedo this. Netanyahu has apparently been able to broker with his own moderate coalition, that's like Benny Gantz of the Blue and Whites and some of these, to replace the far right who have been keeping his coalition and him in power. So he's going to swap out the extremists, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who have been the ones pushing for an extremist. By the way, Smotrich, Benzal Smotrich, he actually commented about this peace deal, this peace deal that's now on the table.
Who?
Smotrich.
Treach.
That's one name, Smotrich.
Is he Jewish?
Benzal, yes, he's the.
Schmo.
Yeah,
Can you
he's.
mention me name Schmo?
Yeah. Anyway, it's not his name. It would be Ben because Benzal is Ben. Okay. Anyway, his focus now. His position.
Focus now.
His position is that this deal that Netanyahu is about to sign and that is with Hamas,
Yes.
a deal between Israel and Hamas,
Lives are in the balance.
that this is a catastrophe. This is Smotrich saying this. He says, we will not be part of any such surrender. After we have spent so much time and spilt so much blood to achieve the accomplishments that we've made, the accomplishment of flattening Gaza, destroying buildings, killing 47,000 people, that's an accomplishment, and adding to the number of Hamas members who want to fight. And by the way, last week, 15 Israeli soldiers died. Okay, so that's the accomplishment that Smotrich is boasting about. No, he says that we will not agree to this. We want to occupy and cleanse the entire strip. That's Smotrich, essentially. Cleanse, meaning
ramification of that? Genetic?
ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing, yeah. He basically wants, if he was to get his way, there would not be a single Palestinian living in the entire land of Palestine.
That sounds like what Iran has said about Israel. They want it to be annihilated.
Yeah, well, but in this case, this is somebody who actually is in the government of Israel, who is involved in this thing. He says to open the gates of hell on Gaza. That's what he says, until Hamas surrenders. So anyway, Smotrich is not going to get his way. At least my prediction is he's not going to get his way. Obviously, Netanyahu is in a real pinch because if he steps away and says, I'll accept this deal, then you're probably going to see Smotrich walk. And that means Israel, Netanyahu's government, the Likud, is going to be no longer a majority coalition, so they're going to have new partners or they'll collapse. So right now we may see...
Well, Netanyahu's greatest days have gone.
Well, Netanyahu is also a skilled politician, and he may survive this particular crisis.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be able to postpone this. Is my guess that I think Trump's long-term strategy here is that he wants the war in Gaza over. He wants things cooled down in the Middle East, and then he can start working on brokering a Saudi-Israel peace agreement. Saudi and Israel recognizing each other. His real interest is in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is where all the money is, where all the oil is, and therefore, from Trump's point of view, Saudi Arabia having a peace deal with Israel is better than this fighting over the last Hamas member being killed for the next 20 years, because that's going to go on for 20 more years if they're going to fight off the last...
What happens if somebody were to blow up a good portion of Israel with an atomic bomb?
Okay, that's far too speculative.
What would happen? Okay, it's just happened and been announced.
Okay, I don't want to go into that. That's
I get the feeling all this is going to be moot. That something major is going to happen.
well. There's certainly if
it's a distant feeling. I'm just chewing on it. I don't.
Yeah, that's a. I don't want to get people into that speculative phase. There's always risks with nuclear weapons wherever they might be, and that includes the Russia-Ukraine situation and so forth. There's always risks of something catastrophic happening, other mass destruction weapons, plagues, viruses, the smallpox or something like that.
With Ukraine, I mean, how will Trump allay those fears or?
Well, I know, but we don't want to. We're talking about.
Deflate.
I know we're talking about. We're talking about the focus on Israel right now. That we may actually be in a successful phase, and the key here is this may be something that both Biden and Trump can take credit for. That's the issue. We really deserve for America to be responsible for helping to bring this to a peaceful resolution. That would be a good breaking point. Trump does not want wars on his watch. He wants to end wars, and therefore this would be a good start for him. Yes, then you have Ukraine, and Ukraine and Putin. That's a totally different deal. I can talk about that a little bit, although I don't want to cut us off with the amount of time we've got. But I will just say this, that Trump will be meeting with Putin shortly after Trump takes office. That's pretty much predicted. Mm-hmm. My concern is that Trump might attempt to negotiate directly with Putin a end of war in Ukraine without including Ukraine as partner. Now, the reason I say that is because the way that the war ended in Afghanistan was Trump met and had his special envoy Khalilzad meet with the Taliban without having the Afghan government, Mr. Karzai, attending that talk. And Trump made a deal, Trump's envoy made a deal with the Taliban to allow for U.S. troops to withdraw from Afghanistan, but the promise was that the Afghan Taliban would negotiate a peace deal with the Karzai government. That was the deal. It didn't happen. And the withdrawing of troops was supposed to be conditional withdrawal. We talked about that before. Conditional withdrawal. You start negotiating with the Karzai government. You work out what's called a hybrid government deal, and we'll keep pulling our troops out and let you guys play in your own yard without us being there. What happened was that while this so-called withdrawal was going on, the Taliban started assassinating the Karzai government. They killed over 500 people in that period after Trump had worked out this deal with the Taliban. The Taliban was assassinating all of these Karzai government people and taking over more and more of the country. So Trump should not have continued the withdrawal. He pulled the troops all the way down to 2,500 by the time it was handed over to Biden. At that point, with only 2,500 troops, it was not viable to start saying, oh, well, my assessment is that the Taliban have betrayed the deal. They've lied to us, and therefore I'm going to boost back up the number of troops. He didn't do that. Biden said, well, Afghanistan is lost already. I'm going to delay it till September, but because Trump had actually said he was going to have the end of troops out by May 1st. And so Biden basically just prolonged the withdrawal, but didn't stop the bleeding. It's like saying, well, you're bleeding to death. Well, I'm going to keep you alive a little longer. So the reason I mention all this about Afghanistan is I don't want to see that happen with Ukraine and Putin. Okay? Putin needs to negotiate with Ukraine, not with the United States. Trump can be an advisor and be helpful as an intermediary, but the deal that needs to be worked out should be between Ukraine and Russia, and not between Russia and the United States. Okay? So that's my only point there. But I do have hopes that there will be a deal in Ukraine. That I feel terribly for the poor Ukrainians that have been bombarded, and
No, it's horrible.
it's horrible. So, and as you say, I served in Ukraine for over 2 years, and I know the people there, and I know Kiev very well, and I'd hate to see that city destroyed. It's a beautiful city, and the Ukrainians. They have support by the Europeans. The Europeans are now starting to increase more and more. Trump had said they should pay more for their own defense. Well, they are. Some of the countries have reached almost the 5% level.
Is Kiev like a Dresden? Very artsy and...
Yeah, it is. It's very pretty, and it's in lots of historical buildings and things like that. Anyway, so there's another topic that we need to cover here, and this is a really interesting one, and it's. For the audience out there, hang on to your hats.
Hang on to your hats.
Hang on to your hats, because this is really bizarro. Yeah. There's a president of Venezuela who Mr. Biden and perhaps Mr. Trump both consider to be illegitimate. His name is Maduro. I've called him Woodhead because of the analogy. In Spanish, Maduro is wood. Oh. Maduro has had elections back about 6 months ago, and they were fraudulent elections. Lots of observers from around the world said that these were totally fraudulent, and that the conclusion, meaning that Maduro won, was fraudulent.
Yeah.
The guy that won is a guy named Edmundo Gonzalez. Edmundo Gonzalez won by a landslide. That's what the election people say, and that's what a lot of Venezuelans say. But Maduro said, no, I don't care, I won. So Maduro was being inaugurated last week.
Yes.
And the same time that he was being inaugurated, Joe Biden was meeting with Mr. Edmundo Gonzalez, who he called the president-elect, in the White House. So the U.S. president is meeting with the political opponent of Mr. Maduro in the White House. And he actually said in his comments, both leaders have agreed there's nothing more essential to the success of democracy than respecting the will of the people expressed through transparent and accountable electoral process. So basically, in the White House, he's saying, this guy, Mr. Gonzalez, won the election. You, Mr. Maduro, down there inaugurating yourself, you didn't win the election. You were a fake president. That's what Biden said. Well, Mr. Maduro didn't appreciate that happening at the time that he was inaugurating himself, to have this rival, political rival, being backed by the White House in an Oval Office meeting, propaganda. So he said, and by the way, the U.S. also put a $25 million reward bounty on Mr. Maduro for his capture and arrest. So basically, this is what Biden was doing while Maduro was inaugurating himself. Maduro is very angry. You would think that's pretty clear. You'd be angry if somebody said, you're not the president, I'm meeting with the president here in the White House, and I'm putting a $25 million bounty on your head. Okay, so Maduro's pretty mad at the United States.
Well, I should think so.
Yeah. So what he decided to do is he decides that he is going to support a decolonialization program and liberate Puerto Rico. Liberate Puerto Rico.
Yeah, good luck.
Now this is an interesting point.
Now, Puerto Rico is not a state; it is a
territory. It is a colony, would be the correct term for it. We call it a territory, but I'm going to explain why it is actually a colony of the United States. Okay. And this is, from Maduro's point of view, Maduro has a program called Bolivarism. Simon Bolivar, was the original liberator from Spain of many South American countries. This is back in 1790s. 1810, 1815.
Yeah.
Simon Bolivar is a very famous figure, and for our audience out there, look him up. He is considered the liberator of South America from colonial conquest, and he liberated. He's from Venezuela. He was born in Caracas, Venezuela. He went to Spain and to Europe as a young man, and he became imbued with democracy. He saw the philosophy of Europe. He traveled all over Europe and Italy and places as democracy was blossoming in those areas. And he said, this is what I want to bring back to South America. I want to liberate them from the Spanish dictatorship. So he fought wars. Simon Bolivar fought wars, organized wars, and liberated Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, plus Cuba, and a lot of other areas from the Spanish. He liberated them from Spanish. So
it wasn't the English crown; it was the Spaniards.
The Spanish crown. Yeah, they liberated them from that. Yeah. Now, what happened was Spain still kept control over Puerto Rico and Cuba. Spain, I think he didn't succeed in liberating Cuba. Spain held Cuba and Puerto Rico, and the U.S. was involved in what's called the Spanish-American War. And as part of that Spanish-American War, the U.S. decided they were going to liberate Puerto Rico from Spanish. Okay?
And that's when that went down.
And this happened in around 1898. And in 1898, we ended up sending in a flotilla of military, 7 warships in a fleet to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and we ended up killing about 12 people and took over Puerto Rico. It was a very small war. It lasted 3.5 hours. A small war. And then after we held the territory, we imposed a blockade on Puerto Rico, and Spain tried to bargain with the United States, and President McKinley said, no, we're not going to bargain. We want Puerto Rico. And it became a territory of the United States at that time. So the Spanish transferred sovereignty in a governor's palace in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in October of 1898. That's what happened. Now, since then, Puerto Rico has been a territory of the United States. We took it, it was a colony of Spain's, and we took it from the Spanish, and it now is a colony of the United States. It has never been free. Now, the reason I bring this up with Maduro, because that's the thing you want to keep in mind, Maduro is saying he wants to liberate Puerto Rico. He's correct. Puerto Rico is a colony. It has been occupied by the U.S. for many, many years. Now, the U.S. claims, well, the Puerto Ricans are happy to be under U.S. rule. Okay? That's the argument, that, the Puerto Ricans are happy. They don't want to be, they like being a territory. And they might eventually become a state. And of course, that's something Donald Trump doesn't want. He does not want Puerto Rico to become a state. So, because they're all liberals, presumably. And they're also minority Hispanics. So that's not what he's looking for as expanding the U.S. territories. Now, FBI Director Lou Freed admitted in 2003 that the FBI had been engaged in suppressing Puerto Rican independence movements. Puerto Rico has had independence movements for quite a long time. They wanted to become a free, independent country. We are saying today, Puerto Ricans...
Don't they cost us a bunch? Why didn't the FBI just stay out of it? Let them have their freedom if they want it.
Well, the argument was that Puerto Rico independence movement is a secessionist movement. You've heard of the Civil War? Well, that was a secessionist movement. So the liberation of Puerto Rico by armed insurgents would be a secessionist movement. If you let the Puerto Ricans get away with it, the next thing you know, you might find the Texans trying it. You see, that's the argument of letting secessionists succeed.
So our strength comes in unity.
But in this case, the unity is a unity imposed by the muskets. These people, there was a Puerto Rican independence movement back in the 1970s and 1980s, and they engaged in over 130 bombings in the U.S., fighting for independence. They were doing suicide bombings and blowing up buildings and stuff like that here. It was seen as a terrorist group. The Puerto Rican independence movement was called a terrorist group by the FBI. So there is a possibility that Maduro could try to light that flame and encourage Puerto Rican independence movement to arise again, and that would be retaliation for Trump having and Biden having an effort at trying to create.
Oh, Trump is shaking in his boots.
Well, keep in mind, terrorism is something that can be done in a low-cost operation.
Terrorism?
Okay. In this case, Puerto Rican liberation being terrorism. We would call it terrorism when they blow up bombs in our cities. They would call it, I'm liberating my island from your colonial occupation. So they don't see it as terrorism, but we would see it as terrorism. Okay? That's the issue. So, and
what's wrong with secession? Because it takes down our numbers? I mean, why not let them go? Why not let Texas go?
Well, that's a far more complex question. I've jokingly said that if we allowed the Israelis to move to Texas from Israel and set up their own state there, that we would have secure borders against the migrants coming in.
We sure would.
That's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but if things got really bad in Israel...
But there's always truth in humor, is there not?
There's always a little truth in humor. There is. So anyway, by the way, the right now the second largest political party in Puerto Rico for governor is called the Puerto Rican Independence Party. Mr. Juan Dalmu is the winner. He won 32% of votes in Puerto Rico. The governor is like president. There's no other higher rank. He won 32% of the votes, came in second place. First place was the New Progressive Party, who's now the governor, with 41%. So you see how close Puerto Rican independence is in the minds of Puerto Ricans. They still support
32%.
independence. 42% support independence.
40. I thought you said 32.
Yeah, 32%. Yeah, 32%. Yeah, 40. It's 41% with the current governor, and the current governor, by the way, has called Trump and said Trump needs to come and respond to this threat that Maduro is making about Venezuela invading Puerto Rico. So this is it's kind of an interesting little tussle down in the the Americas. We sometimes ignore some of these trends that are happening in countries, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show about this growing far right movement.
And what has been the result? What has been the result of that? The fruition of.
Well, this only happened in the last few days. This thing with.
But you said in the past we've done the same thing.
Oh well.
If the giant sleeps.
Well, the question is, Puerto Rican independence is a old position. Even at the time that I mentioned that the Americans sent their armada to take over from the Spanish Puerto Rico, the Spanish at that time were almost prepared to give Puerto Rico self-rule right at the time that the Americans took over Puerto Rico. So there was a movement for Puerto Rican independence going back far earlier than the 1890s. They have, all the rest of South America had achieved independence, and little Puerto Rico never got independence. As I said, Simon Bolivar liberated these other countries from their colonial rulers, and Puerto Rico never got that. So there's a long-standing wish by some, and America needs to recognize it is a colonial power. They talk about it now that America's such a big, powerful country that it's neo-colonialism. That's the term modern people use. But it is not just neo-colonial, it really is colonial. We have a few other places out there like the, American Samoa and Guam that are also territories. And the question, most people, they're out of sight, out of mind. They don't really pay much attention. But my guess is that I don't think that we're going to have to worry about Venezuela invading
Anything
America.
else on the agenda?
No, I think that's it pretty much for today. It's been an interesting week, and I'm sure there'll be more coming up.
It never ends. I think it's just like you always think it's going to end.
Yeah.
It's just like people, well, when I get that new boat, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Now, well, I got the boat, getting bored of that. When I can travel to Europe and maybe buy a house in Italy.
Yeah.
Have my house in Italy. Grazie, prego, hey, buonanotte. Okay, been here.
Yeah.
George is my neighbor here, the actor. What's his name there? And so what am I going to do now? Well, whatever. It just goes on and on. I mean, this is going to make us happy.
Anyway,
you know who the happiest people are? My friend who has 11 children. No, 11's on the way.
Yeah.
His name is Scott.
How do you know he's the most happy? Have you got a happy meter? I would say the guy sitting under a coconut palm with a rum and coke is probably the most happy.
You like rum and Coca-Cola? No, I don't think so at all. First of all, dope, which is what alcohol is also.
Yeah.
For a second, it makes you feel a little happy high. Within 15 minutes, it's actually brought you lower than you were, and it's depressive, it's depressant, and it makes people have.
Well,
we had fun last night. What did you do? Oh, remember.
Yeah.
Then you didn't have any fun. You partially killed yourself for a night by drinking alcohol.
I'm joking about that, but the point is that happiness is a very subjective phrase.
It is, I mean.
So.
I look at my friends with children, and I'm not jealous. I don't want anybody else's children. I don't want anybody else's wife. I don't want anybody else's money, unless I've earned some of it.
Right. You could make yourself very happy and adopt 14 children.
Sometimes I think when God says no, maybe he's made the right decision. Because a friend of mine, two of his 4 children got in my car recently. They're in the back seat with the special chairs.
Right.
And I'm driving along, I'm supposed to meet up with the family somehow. So I ended up with the 2 kids in the back of my car.
Drooling all over the back seat.
No, not drooling, but they're only 6 years old each. Oh. I've never heard, I'm not talking about sounds emanating from the body either, no gas exchange or anything. I've never heard so many sounds in the back of my car.
Yeah.
How the heck are they making this and that going on? And the talking never ceases. They're in the now.
Yeah.
And it's now, and get all the gusto out of the now you can, the marrow out of the bone. And it's like, we decided we're going to meet you over here, so we're going to put the kids over in the car. Oh, okay, I guess you can do that. Oh, thank God. It's like, okay, peace in my car again.
It makes you happy.
I love the kids.
It makes you happy that the kids are gone.
Oh, my word, I love them to tears, but it's like, I'm older. I don't have the patience I once had.
Yeah.
And so now I get the grandparent thing. It's great to visit, and it's great to say goodbye.
Yeah. All right, well, that's a good...
Glad you came, Johnny.
That's a good segue for our show. Thank you, audience, for visiting
Thank you, audience. It's nice for you joining Grandpa Palmer, the mayor of the airways, who loves you, baby.
Okay.
God bless America.
Yep. All right.
Charlie Mack likes Vero's voice.
Yeah, let me hear a few of these comments before you on what you got